This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello there and welcome to Global Business Africa. We'll be giving you insight into Africa's business and financial markets. I'm Uche Okoronkwo, coming to you from Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Let's start with a look at the markets. Emerging market stocks rose today, inching away from correction territory as we saw U.S. Treasury yields stabilizing today. Also, China's blue chips and most other Asian bourses were in positive territory, and that helped to push MSCI's index of emerging market stocks up 0.6% on the day. Emerging market stocks are now down about 8.5% from February highs, but they're still up 2.6% year to date. Meanwhile, South Africa's JSE All Share did lose some ground today, dragged down by a 4% fall in the gold mining index and an over 1% fall in resources. Financials did climb over 1% today. Now, also coming up on today's show. One person shot dead as university students in South Africa protest prohibitive costs. Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo pledges to transform his country's economy. And one Kenyan family setting itself apart from other tea farmers will show you how. Well, let's start off today's show in South Africa, where at least one person has been killed after police fired rubber bullets to disperse a group of protesters at the University of Witwatersrand, or WITS. The students are demanding that those who owe the university up to $9,850 in fees still be allowed to register for the new academic year. Now, the cost of university education has become a symbol of the inequalities more than 2 decades after the end of apartheid. The Independent Police Investigation Directorate said it was looking into the incident. Well, Angelo Coppola has been monitoring this and now joins us from Johannesburg. Great to have you with us, Angelo, as always. Now, it certainly seems like the topic of funding education is still a pretty hot one in South Africa, even after the hashtag Fees Must Fall movement. So give us a sense of today's movement. What was it all about? They talked about financial exclusion of students who owe fees. So tell us more about what they're fighting for.
Well, look, Uche, many of the students are protesting and have been negotiating with WITS management now for about 3 weeks. And they're trying to get the debt limit raised from 120,000 Rand, which it currently is, to 150,000 Rand. And that would allow some of the students to return to their studies while they try and make a plan to find the money to pay off their debt from last year. Many students, of course, have lost the ability to pay for their studies when COVID struck last year, with more than 1 million people losing their jobs, and many the ability then to pay for that tuition that's needed in many instances. So they're fighting for that right, but what's also now happening is they're also starting to demand a moratorium or a deletion of all historic debt. So there are 2 issues here. One is to have that debt limit raised slightly, and the other is to have their debt wiped out completely. And we'll have to wait and see how that one plays out, Uche.
Well, Angelo, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme says that they are facing financing shortfalls. What do we know about how much was allocated to funding education in this year's budget, and if there have been major cuts to government programs?
Well, look, on Monday, Higher Education Minister Blade Nzimande actually said that the National Student Financial Aid Scheme was experiencing what he calls a shortfall, and that's why it couldn't confirm any kind of funding percentage or level for those first-year university students. Now, Nzimande says that his department and the Treasury were working to find solutions for the crisis. And if the strange thing is that the solution couldn't be found on the day that the university started their academic history or their academic year, and that was on Monday. So the fact that Nzimande had to make the announcement on the Monday shows that there were budget constraints that couldn't be resolved, which increases the risk that more students may take to the streets. something that nobody wants to see again, which here.
Well, Nzimande, as you mentioned, the higher education minister, he said they're treating this matter with urgency, and he mentioned that they were presenting options to the cabinet today. Is there any news out of that meeting?
Well, look, we don't know if the subject actually did come up, but following the death of that 35-year-old civilian, it's expected that the matter probably got the attention it deserved. We'll only, of course, hear the outcome of any cabinet discussions on Thursday, when they normally make announcements about decisions that were taken during that cabinet session. It's probably going to take a little longer than one cabinet meeting to find a solution to and to find the money, in fact. In the meantime, of course, those students will probably be locked out of campuses, and that could lead to frustration and possible protest action. And not just at Wits University, but you're looking at universities across the country, because there are hundreds and thousands of first years and second years looking to start their university lives again. And if they haven't got money, it's unlikely that the university management are going to let them on site or onto the campuses. So if a solution isn't announced tomorrow or in the next couple of days, we could see rising unrest and disquiet. Which
Well, we'll certainly continue to follow that story closely. Many thanks for that update, Angelo. That, of course, is Angelo Coppola joining us in Johannesburg. Well, let's move on to Ghana now, where President Nana Akufo-Addo has delivered his first State of the Nation address after winning a keenly contested election in December. He has pledged to transform the country's economy after it was battered by the coronavirus pandemic. Here's CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai with more from Accra.
Hospitals will be designated.
President Akufo-Addo's State of the Nation address comes after Ghana's Supreme Court unanimously quashed a petition challenging his legitimacy. The court declared that the petition filed by opposition candidate John Mahama lacked merit. The president says his focus now is to revive the economy after a downturn caused by COVID-19.
Our overall economic growth rate for 2020 was reviewed downwards from 6.8% to 0.9%. This was done to reflect the impact of the pandemic. The fiscal responsibility rule of keeping a deficit within a threshold of 5% of GDP and a positive primary balance for every year was suspended in 2020 to enable fiscal operations to accommodate the impact of the pandemic.
Ghana has begun its COVID-19 vaccine rollout and wants to inoculate 20 million people by the end of the year. The president hopes to create more jobs to support the country's economic recovery.
Government expects economic activity, which has already picked up, to do so even further following the ongoing vaccination exercise and the easing of restrictions put in place to curb the effects of the disease. We expect GDP growth to rebound strongly this year to nearly 5%, above the IMF's 2021 January projection of 3.2% growth for Sub-Saharan Africa for 2021.
President Akufo-Addo's State of the Nation address has received mixed reactions from legislators.
I was particularly happy about the railway program and then the Buankra Inland Port, which of course many young people in Ashanti region are looking up to find jobs.
He's creating the impression that everything is all right, but even the developed countries are telling their people times are hard, we have to do things differently.
The president also outlined key infrastructure development he plans to undertake by the end of his mandate in 2024. It includes the expansion of roads across the country and improving access to healthcare delivery. President Akufo-Addo could struggle to get legislation passed during his second term in office due to Ghana's hung parliament. He will have to try and get support from the opposition party to make progress on key campaign pledges. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
And now to some corporate headlines today. South Africa's MTN Group reported that its 2020 earnings surged But the company has cancelled final dividends as it focuses on faster reduction of debt at its holding company. Now, the firm added 29 million customers, growing adjusted headline earnings per share by 52%. It also more than doubled operating cash flow to $1.7 billion. Meanwhile, U.S. big pharma Pfizer says it wants to produce its coronavirus vaccine in India, but that's if it's assured of faster regulatory clearance and freedom on pricing and exports. The company has applied for emergency use authorization for its product after the drug regulator declined its request to skip a small local safety trial. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's Cathay Pacific Airways says it is focusing on cash preservation after reporting a record annual loss of $2.8 billion. This is amid the travel downturn, restructuring costs, and fleet write-downs amid the coronavirus pandemic. In December, passenger numbers fell by 98.7% compared to 2019. And German sportswear maker Adidas has forecast a strong rebound in 2021 sales. It, however, sees its profits being trimmed by costs associated with divesting the Reebok brand. Now, the bounce back is largely attributed to sales in China and the rest of Asia and also Latin America. Fourth quarter sales rose 1% to $6.59 billion, while operating profits slipped slightly to $268 million. And that's a look at our corporate headlines. Well, let's head into a short break now, still coming up on the show. Tanzania to complete the second phase of its standard gauge railway ahead of schedule. And millions relocate to newly developed social housing units in Egypt's slum upgrading program.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay. We'll head up now.
But beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible? And why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sumitra Nairobi. Hello, Nairobi.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business. Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and Global Business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN. Welcome back. Well, let's head to Tanzania now, where the government says the ongoing construction of the second phase of its standard gauge railway line is likely to be completed ahead of schedule. Now, the line is part of the country's almost $7 billion railway project, which was announced in April 2017. It is intended to replace the country's colonial-era network. Here's CGTN's Isaac Lukando with the details.
The construction of the 426-kilometer second phase of Tanzania's standard gauge railway line is now more than 50% complete. The government says despite challenges, the target completion date of February 2022 for the more than 2,500-kilometer project is still on track.
We started building this railway from Dar es Salaam to Morogoro region. Work is ongoing, and for the first phase it is at 90%. Our initial plan was to have a train operating by April this year, but there have been challenges with COVID-19 in other countries, as well as procurement procedures to follow. We are now just waiting for the carriages for the train to arrive.
The standard gauge railway system in Tanzania is designed to use electricity to power its locomotives. State power company TANESCO says it will provide 70 megawatts of electricity to power the first phase of the standard gauge railway. But the company is depending on the completion of the $2.8 billion Nyerere hydropower project to power the entire railway line.
We have faith that by June 2022, everything will be complete and 2,115 megawatts of electricity will be available. We are certain because we have a lot of patriotic engineers working day and night.
The standard gauge railway, currently in its second of its 5 phases of construction, will form part of the more than 2,500-kilometer long railway system. Once complete, the railway line is expected to link Tanzania with neighboring countries of Rwanda and Uganda, cutting through Burundi and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
According to the Tanzania Railway Corporation, the railway will address current congestion challenges and decrease freight service charges by 40%. The railway will be able to haul up to 10,000 tons of freight, equivalent to 500 lorries per trip.
At 160 kilometers per hour, the electric trains will be the fastest in East Africa. The Tanzania Railway Corporation believes this will help speed up the economy.
Once complete, the standard gauge railway will push industrialization in the country, and it will also boost the efficiency of our various ports.
Having reached lower middle income status in 2020, Tanzania is hoping that improved railway transport will get it to its next station economically. Isaac Lukando, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
And in South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa has implored his fellow countrymen to buy local goods in order to help revive the economy. He was speaking at the annual Proudly South African Buy Local Summit and Expo. Now, the focus of the conference is on the business of localization as a driver of economic growth. CGTN's Yolisa Njamela has more.
Proudly South African is an official buy local advocacy campaign. It encourages South Africans to buy local products and use local services in order to help stimulate the economy and create jobs. This entity holds summits and an expo showcasing local products on an annual basis. This year, the summit is being held virtually as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Delivering a keynote address, President Cyril Ramaphosa urged South Africans to buy local, emphasizing that buying local is about investing in quality, sustaining local businesses, and keeping jobs at home.
Wear local, travel local, eat local, watch local content, read local authors. And this is so important that even when you go to a bookstore, go to that section that is Africa, South African. Support local music. Yes, listen to the brilliant stars that we've got in our country. So Proudly South African must move beyond just being a campaign. We want it to be a reality. It must become a mass movement that all South Africans are keen to embrace and to actively support.
Ramaphosa announced that the government plans to increase local procurement over the next 5 years, vowing to clamp down on illegal importation of goods in South Africa.
Apart from its own procurement commitments, government is working to lower the barriers to entry to make it a lot easier to establish and to grow a business in our country. We're also working to support existing manufacturers.
The president added that some industries are already on board. For instance, in the sugar sector, the government has already secured the commitment of local manufacturers of soft drinks to procure 80% of their sugar needs from local growers, including small-scale farmers. Other sectors have made similar commitments.
Automotive Master Plan, for example, aims to double the amount of job opportunities by increasing the level of local content in vehicles assembled in this country from 39% to 60%. That is a whopping increase. And the commitment to achieve that 60% is there, and I've seen it and I've heard it. And I want to touch it more and more. The Poultry Master Plan has contributed to the production of more than 1 million additional chickens every week that make their way onto the shelves in our retail stores.
The virtual expo features more than 100 companies showcasing their products and services in a short video with an online meeting hub where buyers and sellers can connect. Yudisa Njomela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Meanwhile, Tunisia's post-pandemic economic recovery plan could benefit from gains that can result from open data. Now, a study by the World Bank shows the country stands to gain from using open data to enhance accountability of public institutions and state-owned enterprises. Now, Tunisia's economy contracted last year, and here's CGTN's Adnan Shaushi taking up that story.
Tunisia's government is increasingly recognizing the role played by data analytics in policymaking. This, in turn, has paved the way for improved coordination and simplified administrative procedures. The North African state has recently launched the second phase of the national hackathon OpenGov Data Hack 2020, which is likely to contribute to the use of more informed and evidence-based decisions and improved coordination by government agencies.
The ministries and state institutions which share the open public data have given startups an opportunity to develop mobile applications. The innovative apps use this data to launch economic projects and services. Many jobs and added value are created in order to boost the Tunisian economy.
Authorities said 7 out of 38 teams which took part in the hackathon managed to develop innovative solutions based on the internal and external use and reuse of open public data. The second phase of the Open Data program consists in implementing project samples of the first World Bank-led national hackathon that is expected to enhance governance and transparency in the North African state.
Tunisia is the most advanced country in the Arab world in terms of open government and open data. Tunisian authorities have worked on the legal and structural aspects of this project in order to manage the governance process in a more open and transparent way.
International governance consultants assert that the Tunisian government has identified several issues that could be solved using data and technology.
The objective of open data is to generate wealth by improving the performance of the government. The use and reuse of open data for creating and offering high performance in the public services will lead to improved and efficient delivery of government services.
5 Tunisian startups have used open data to develop 7 mobile applications. The new initiatives will help address challenges in relation to administration, culture and transport.
According to the Digital Administration Department at the Tunisian Prime Ministry, the World Bank is committed to supporting the OpenGov Data Hack 2020 winners. The Tunisian entrepreneurs will carry out their projects and help solve problems related to vital sectors such as transport and social welfare. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
And staying in the region, Egypt's long journey to eradicate slums has enabled millions of citizens to relocate to newly developed social housing units. Now, the ambitious plan is part of a 5-year government-funded project which started in 2016 to either demolish or upgrade unsafe slums and modernize the capital. Yasser Hakim brings us up to speed with these plans.
The number of slums in Egypt has been growing for decades. About 25 million Egyptians, roughly a quarter of the population, live in slums, including up to 60% of slum dwellers who live in the Greater Cairo area. Eradicating slums has been a top priority for Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi as he launched the Long Live Egypt campaign in 2016.
Slums are a phenomenon that have a negative impact on the community and the state. They were neglected by previous governments and leaders. Studies were made in coordination with the several ministries on how to implement the project to ensure the well-being of the slum residents.
Shanty towns were divided into unsafe ones that can be upgraded, while those slum dwellers deemed to be in areas that are too dangerous to live in needed to be evacuated and their informal settlements brought to the ground.
The people were moved from slums
to new gated communities that were built specially for them, with all the services provided in a clean and healthy environment. Tens of cities have been built on state-owned land around the country to host the shantytown residents. The new flats are delivered free of charge. They're fully furnished and finished inside neighborhoods, complete with all necessary amenities for a better quality of life.
The president was the first to deal with this issue in more than 40 years. It's great work. We've benefited as residents, and I hope they end shantytowns for good, because they're full of bad things like drugs and theft.
It is a great project because now we can live, drink and eat in a real home, go to work and then back to a tidy, organized, safe neighborhood, totally different from the past.
So far, over 3 million citizens have been moved to the new complexes. That's around 70% of those targeted. But the government has gone a step further to enable the inhabitants assimilate easily.
Shantytowns was a result of social deficiencies. No jobs, low quality education, lack of services such as water, electricity, sewage system. We accommodate them in a suitable environment and we also provide suitable jobs. For example, in Metro City, we saw they had experience in livestock breeding and recycling. We created projects, they are based on these skills, so they have become productive, they earn a living, have better awareness and therefore won't return to the slum life. We did the same in every governorate.
To have the rest of the slum dwellers relocated to their new homes during the first half of 2021. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Now, Africa's strong partnership with China has given rise to development of various key sectors on the continent. In agriculture, for instance, there has been a reduction in food shortages and wastage. While CGTN's Girum Chala sat down with the African Union's Commissioner for Rural Economy and Agriculture, Josefa Sako, and they discussed the budding partnership and the transformation of food security in Africa.
First of all, I would like to commend this partnership, China and Africa. It's a very good partnership, and if we are sitting on this comfortable building, it's thanks to this partnership. So we really commend the government, the Chinese government, for supporting us in building such a, a huge and representative headquarters for our common organization, the African Union. So this one is really very good.
China has proved that a country can use its agriculture sector to not only feed its population but also use it for more economic development. Now, what can Africa really take as a lesson from the Chinese agricultural sector development experience so that it can use it within the continent for more growth?
I think there are a lot we can take advantage from China. As you say, with such a big population, 1.3 billion, and they can feed, they have self-sufficiency, in food security. Why can't we, do it when we have much arable land? 60% of our land is arable on the continent. We have good weathers, we have waters everywhere. So I think it's an opportunity to really seize this partnership, and look at this department. We can gain a lot, a lot from China. Unfortunately, even during the 4 years, I saw that there's no much dynamism in agricultural sector, which we are working with them. I've been there twice in China. I met the authority, I made the road belt initiative. I say, okay, why can't we put CADEP, as a flagship program for transformation of agriculture on the continent as a priority? And I think we had our summit, Africa, the partnership summit, Africa and China, and I think some recommendation came out. This is the moment to implement those recommendations with Chinese.
Madam Commissioner, in which particular areas is the Chinese government and partners from China are involved with the Department of Agriculture and Rural Economy of the African Union, and which areas do you also want China to be involved in the next perhaps few years?
We are already working with Chinese in key issues Like we got a lot of assistance on this food loss and waste. You know, at times, you know, there are countries, they have productions there, but due to lack of infrastructure and the lack of storage facilities, we used to lose at least 40%, you know, of our food stays on the field, mostly those perishable crops. With Chinese, we are working with them, and their experience we are transferring here. We have a tool already, a strategy on how to prevent, you know, post-harvest loss and waste, you know, on the continent. So we have got that document, and the Chinese are really ready to go with us in that journey in order to reduce this type of post-harvest loss. This is a key issue. We are on the way to have a MOU, a sound MOU, the areas where we really want to focus, which is food security and poverty reduction. I visited China, and I saw the way, you know, they really tackle the issue of poverty reduction by transforming the rural area. So this is a very, very good opportunity that we have to take. And during this, my second mandate, I'm going to speed out, if the pandemic reduces, I'm going to speed out this cooperation and the MOU to be really operationalized so that we can take the dividends of the advantages that China has.
And you're watching Global Business Africa. We're going to take a short break now. Still coming up on the show. Britain's $32 billion test and trace system criticized for not having a clear impact on the pandemic. And China increases investment to ensure the Belt and Road Initiative is environmentally friendly.
We celebrate those who are adopting and thriving despite the challenges, from grassroots to big businesses. Global Business takes you along for the ride as we track the making of a giant.
Only on CGTN.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Just about 1/2 the hour. Here's a look at other headlines this hour. It is emerging that at least 70 Ethiopian migrants were killed in a fire that broke out in a detention center in Sana'a, Yemen on Sunday night. Now, the center is under the control of Houthis, who have previously criticized the United Nations for failing to repatriate the migrants. The death toll is expected to rise since many are yet to be accounted for. The Ethiopian government says it has embarked on repatriating survivors. Meanwhile, the Libyan parliament has endorsed the interim government's formation after a 3-day session. Interim Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Deiba has accepted a parliament's request to replace some of his cabinet candidates. While initial reports say there was consensus over the endorsement, only around 2/3 of parliament members joined the talks. And the Nigerian government says it is set to start the mass trial of about 5,000 suspected Boko Haram insurgents across the nation. But criticism from top global bodies like the United Nations Human Rights Agency have emerged about authorities failing to prioritize the trial before. And finally, the Republic of Congo is set to receive COVID-19 vaccines donated by China. The jabs made by Sinopharm have been loaded and are now on the way to the African nation. Well, China's ambassador said in February that 100,000 doses of vaccines will be donated to the country. Beijing also said that Chinese vaccines are being provided free to over 60 nations. It has also agreed to provide 10 million doses to the global vaccine sharing program, COVAX. And that's a recap of today's top headlines. Well, let's get you some international news now. Britain's $32 billion test and trace system has not made a clear impact on the COVID-19 pandemic, and that's according to the Parliament Public Accounts Committee. This comes after Prime Minister Boris Johnson promised a world-beating system as part of the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. Now, the committee says the test and trace system has not achieved the key goal of avoiding a cycle of national lockdowns. It notes that the system was overly reliant on expensive contractors, with consultants working on the system costing about $1,400 a day. It has taken the successful development and deployment of vaccines to plot a definitive route back to normality. Britain's Health Minister Matt Hancock and the head of the country's test and trace system, Dido Harding, have both defended the program.
NHS Test and Trace is an absolutely essential component in the fight against COVID. We're hitting all of the targets that SAGE set us. And, as we speak today, we're providing an extra layer of security and confidence as our children go back to school, as our loved ones are able to visit their relatives in care homes once again. We're providing that absolutely essential service as we come out of lockdown.
Well, let's now head to China, where dozens of companies have announced roadmaps to become carbon neutral. And the first industrial park to meet that goal has emerged in the capital, Beijing. Here's CGTN's Sunia taking us there.
It looks like a regular industrial park on the outside, but this Goldwing technology facility is the country's first ever carbon neutral compound. For all its 90,000 square meter range, the company that specializes in generating clean energy is employing many of its own products, from wind turbines to solar panels, and it offsets the remaining carbon emissions by buying carbon quotas in the country's expanding green exchange.
We've been exploring carbon-neutral solutions for a long time before 2021. Seeing that so many companies and industries have made it their goal, we wanted to be the first to complete and offer such solutions.
They're having smaller individual steps too. The compound encourages the use of electric cars as well as walking for its more than 3,000 staff, all part of its green energy plan.
We're putting forward carbon-neutral proposals at the two sessions, too. We hope to soon engage a batch of cities, industrial parks and villages that have put forward carbon reduction plans to try out various green measures and make them carbon-neutral models.
Many companies in China are already joining Goldwing in setting up their own botanic gardens and vegetable greenhouses to take in carbon dioxide, as all of China are working to meet the green goal of becoming carbon neutral by the year 2060. Sun Ye, CGTN, Beijing.
Now, China isn't just looking to grow green domestically, it's also looking to contribute globally. For the first time, China's green investments in the Belt and Road Initiative took a majority share when it came to total investments last year.
Cities across Pakistan were plunged into darkness for several hours one night in January. Not uncommon in a country that has been hit with electricity shortages for years. However, the near-complicated Cairo hydropower project is set to help the country resolve this and bring in more sustainable and affordable clean energy. Situated on the Jhelum River in eastern Pakistan, the 720-megawatt project is part of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor Initiative and the first hydropower project developed in Pakistan by China's Three Gorges Corporation.
So totally, we have 2,000 megawatts project in the portfolio investment. Total engaging about 6% of Pakistan's total installed capacity. In this project, we are using the best practice, the World Bank IFC performance standard. All the concept and the practices is to safeguard the environment and to smooth the relationship with the local community.
Hydropower project in Beirut, power transmission programs in Laos, solar power construction in Greece. The company is currently one of the world's largest producer of clean energy with over 30 global projects.
When we provide the clean energy, it means we are encouraging the country to adjust their energy ratio.
The latest report from the International Institute of Green Finance at the Central University of Finance and Economics suggests renewable power for the first time made up a majority of China's Belt and Road Initiative energy investment. Shares of wind, solar, and hydropower took more than half of China's total investment in energy infrastructure last year, up from less than 40% in 2019.
And the renewable energies have become much more affordable over the last years because of technological advances, particularly also driven by Chinese companies. So it has become cheaper to invest in renewable energies often than in fossil fuel energies. And that's why we're seeing an increased demand and an increased supply for green investments in green energies. The Chinese government has been at the forefront of pushing green development.
In terms of increasing green development, it's not enough to only depend on the government. The financial sector also needed to play an important role.
So the financial sector is, of course, responsible to make money, to make returns on their investments, and it is often determined by the cost and by the risks. And what we're seeing worldwide is a stronger understanding of financial institutions to integrate climate risks in their decision-making.
The expert added that boosting green energy investment in BRI countries will help China achieve its own carbon neutrality goal by 2016. And he believed if China is able to sell more green technology abroad, it will also become cheaper at home.
Now, of course, innovation relies on scientific research. While China's achievements have been pretty wide-ranging, including space exploration, engineering projects, and advancements in digital technology. But with success comes challenges. While Omar Khan looks at how one chip manufacturer is developing greater self-reliance.
There's no doubt that China has made significant advancements in all things technology, with more to come in the future. But in the country's latest 5-year plan, there's been an added focus on becoming more self-reliant when it comes to native technology and innovation. I'm here in Shenzhen to speak with one chip manufacturer, a sector that's been hard hit by external factors, to hear more about their future development goals. Established in the Chinese tech hub city back in 2014, Hangshun Chips has grown to be one of the industry's leaders. Operating 300 MCU chip production lines, their technology is being used in the automotive, medical, and consumer electronic fields. Beneath the success, however, is an awareness of challenges facing specifically Chinese tech firms.
We saw what happened to Huawei and ZTE, so everyone in China, especially the government and enterprises, has realized the importance of independent R&D. We recognize that independent development and ownership of chips is also important.
That business outlook is amplified in the country's 14th 5-year plan, where a significant focus is placed on domestic tech innovation and support for small and medium-sized enterprises. It could also be seen as a silver lining for some companies as financial support has increased.
We recognize that independent development and ownership of chips is also important. The situation has resulted in more government investment and support. This goes directly into our R&D department. When we first started our business, our R&D team had 30 people. This year, we plan to grow our team to 120 people, with more focused divisions to increase our strength in the chip sector.
The importance of seeking greater autonomy and control in both technology and upstream industrial chains is one way of managing difficulties like the ongoing China-US trade war. Some tech analysts believe that this should be a wake-up call for China to be more proactive with future innovation.
I think in the next 5-year plan, China should focus on many of those high-tech areas that we do not have the root technology, such as the chip manufacture, such as, for example, aircraft engine, such as make all the fuels cleaner.
None of these technological goals will come easy, especially given continued economic and geopolitical tensions. And despite being home to a massive consumer market, China will more likely than not have to rely on continued and clear-cut planning to get where it wants to be on the global stage. Omar Khan, CGTN, Shenzhen.
Now, Hong Kong launched its youth employment scheme last year, aiming to create thousands of much-needed jobs amid the coronavirus pandemic. Here's Michelle Hennessy reporting.
21-year-old Sonia Lee is supposed to be living in Oxford, studying at one of the UK's most prestigious universities. Instead, she's had to swap lecture halls for video calls after getting stuck at home in Hong Kong during the pandemic. But while the stress from remote learning is significant, she says life after university is also looking uncertain.
I think because of the pandemic, a lot of companies are struggling, and obviously they have to cut down their headcounts. But while there are the same amount of students trying to apply for jobs after they graduate, so obviously the competition is so much bigger now.
Sonia travelled to Shenzhen during 2 internships with Tencent and said the opportunities for graduates in the Greater Bay Area are huge. She's hoping a new Hong Kong youth scheme that aims to create thousands of jobs there will be available when she graduates next year. Chief Executive Carrie Lam announced the scheme during last year's policy address. The local government will provide a monthly allowance to eligible companies for every Hong Kong resident sent elsewhere in the GBA under the scheme. Part of the aim is to deepen cooperation between Guangdong, Hong Kong and Macau as part of a plan to turn the GBA into a tech and finance powerhouse. But some are concerned it could lead to a talent drain of Hong Kong's best and brightest young people. Comes as the city is tackling an ageing population. Some economists are warning the government needs to do more to cope with the demographic shift.
In the next 20 years, the proportion of elderly population will increase from 18% right now to actually 30% in 2040. And basically, this would mean a higher need for healthcare or basically any feasible pension income that actually are needed to support this group of population. To that end, we haven't really seen a very big investment right now in Hong Kong.
But in the short term, unemployment is hard to ignore. The number of people out of work in Hong Kong hit a near 17-year high between November and January. The Labour Department says it's even higher for the city's youth. And with the Chinese mainland being the only major economy to grow last year, supporters of the scheme say a vibrant job market in the GBA will help the city's economy.
We're expecting 2,000 young people to try out in the GBA. We do not see them as leaving Hong Kong. We see them to develop over there. If they really make a success in the GBA, maybe one fine day they will bring back even more capital, more creativity, and more job back to Hong Kong.
The central government is also determined to strengthen the GBA. President Xi Jinping has said authorities should attract more young Hong Kongers to the Chinese mainland to bring their hearts as well as their minds closer to the motherland. Michelle Hennessy, CGTN, Hong Kong.
Meanwhile, policymakers, companies and universities are all working together in the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area to transform the mega area of some 70 million people into a global innovation hub. Well, CGTN's Huang Fei is there to meet the people shaping the future of China's smart economy.
An old industry with a new twist. Self-storage meets the Internet of Things. Hong Kong entrepreneur Felix Huang created this fast-growing startup in Guangzhou, replacing conventional locks with mobile access. And business is on the up. With the city's property prices doubling in recent years, people and companies need cheaper places to put their stuff. A burgeoning class of small online retailers are also using them for last-mile deliveries. But much of the company's success has to do with geography.
All of our facility and equipment are all procured within Greater Bay region. There's many IoT hardware suppliers and tech providers in this region. So it's very crucial for our startup to have this kind of skeleton or this kind of backup resources within the region to have a higher successful rate of startup.
The company has expanded to 20 locations in Guangzhou and Shenzhen in 3 years, thanks to generous subsidies from the Hong Kong government and a slew of incentives here on the mainland. Felix works from this incubation base in Guangzhou. It's a one-stop shop for Hong Kong and Macau entrepreneurs looking to tap into a regional market of 70 million consumers.
New startups have to jump through a lot of hoops, from corporate tax and hiring to legal paperwork. Here we have professionals from the government to help them troubleshoot. We want to make sure their businesses can grow here in a way that's sustainable and healthy.
So what's in it for the mainland? Hong Kong's expertise in financing and conducting international business is a key advantage. Guangdong also wants to leverage Hong Kong's experience in research and education, especially when it comes to high-tech engineering. This university has been sowing the seeds for a rising advanced manufacturing sector. This robotics lab is the beating heart of future innovation. It's connecting top education resources from Hong Kong University with a wealth of industry opportunities here in the Greater Bay Area. Students are mentored by experts on both sides, and many of graduates have gone on to work for leading companies or start their own businesses. The university says it adds more than 10,000 recruits to the local engineering workforce every year, more than anywhere else in Guangdong.
To train innovators and visionaries that meet industry demands, we need to introduce innovative approaches. Our Robotics Academy is a great example. Our graduates are very well paid and well sought after. If we keep this up, Guangdong's future as a manufacturing powerhouse is guaranteed.
For Felix, the future is where the market is. He encourages more people in Hong Kong to step out of their comfort zone to experience firsthand the full potential of China's economic growth. Huang Fei, CGTN, Guangzhou.
Well, on that note, let's take a look at commodity markets today. Talk of a commodities supercycle continues as we see gains in prices from iron to copper. Now, oil prices were pretty steady today. They were supported by an Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development forecast that predicted the world economy was set to rebound in 2021 with a 5.6% growth. Also, OPEC Plus output curbs are helping prices, but they have been held in check by rising U.S. inventories. Meanwhile, gold prices inching lower today after posting its biggest jump in 2 months a day earlier. That's as firmer U.S. Treasury yields and the dollar eroded the metal's appeal today. Gold, of course, has been falling largely against the backdrop of yields rising. Well, let's take a short break now. Still coming up on the show. One family in Kenya finds a way to get more out of its tea plantation.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo, Juba, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Now, a farm situated in central Kenya's Gatanga constituency is making waves by offering consumers a tea tour and a chance to pick their own leaves fresh from the farm. Known for its health benefits, purple tea has a huge demand across the Asian continent. And CGTN's Penina Karibe tells us how one family is setting themselves apart from other Kenyan tea farmers.
Guests pick purple-tipped tea leaves at a farm in Gatanga, central Kenya. They've traveled about 42 kilometers from the capital, Nairobi, to indulge in this experience. The Gatura Greens Tea Tour was launched last October to get more Kenyans drinking this specialty tea. Travelers get the chance to process, brew, taste and sample other tea varieties produced at the farm.
The fact that I have seen the processing here and it's something that's really done without adding any preservatives or anything, I think I would want to keep drinking the purple tea. What's really unique about this experience is that you get to pick the tea yourself, come back, you're taught how to roll the tea, you even get to drink the tea, which is amazing, and it's palatable.
Developed in 2011, the purple tea variant was released to farmers with the aim of cushioning them from the oversupply of black tea and low prices. Gatura Greens is among the farmers benefiting from the slew of new varieties. The family-run business grows purple tea on 20 acres alongside 100 acres of black tea.
Purple tea is twice the price of green tea. When we are buying from the farmers, we buy it at 100 shillings. Where normally they get 50 shillings for the same kilogram of tea. And when we process ourselves, we sell this one double the price of the green tea.
The farm processes its own purple tea, which is sold directly to Chinese buyers, as well as clients in Canada, Sweden, the United Kingdom and the United States. The processing of the tea is quite simple. Purple tea is also grown in China and Japan. Kenya's broad-leaved varieties are more popular and profitable than the small-leaved teas grown in Asian countries. Experts say the purple pigment in the tea contains anthocyanin and other substances that have several health benefits.
The anthocyanins normally bind to heavy metals, so that if you consume something that have got heavy metals that can have healthy effect on your cells, then you also protect yourself against such diseases as cancer.
Kenya is the world's biggest exporter of black tea, and the crop is one of the top hard currency earners. The Kenya Tea Development Agency says it is setting up a specialized factory for production of Japanese Essentia green tea.
When they diversify, it therefore means that we'll produce less of black CTC tea, which Kenya is known for, and if we can do that by that percent, and manufacture and process that percent into the new products, like the purple tea, green tea, yellow tea, white teas. You realize that there will be less of black CTC in the global market, and therefore that will push up the prices for the black tea. Besides, selling these other tea products at a premium price.
3 minutes, it's called steeping. Purple tea seeds also produce oils suitable for cooking, cosmetics and use in the pharmaceutical industry. With such benefits, the government has embarked on working on new laws that will offer farmers and cottage factories incentives like tax cuts on imported machinery. Penina Karibe, CGTN.
Well, before we leave you today, a quick look at Africa's currencies. South Africa's rand extending gains today, made on from a better-than-expected Q4 GDP release yesterday. Now, today it gained as much as 1% after a key measure of U.S. inflation undershot expectations. Now, traders are saying the good news for the rand is that commodity prices are hovering near 8-year highs. The bad news is that raw materials matter less for South Africa's currency than movements in U.S. Treasury yields. Well, that's it for this edition of Global Business Africa. Remember, you can send your feedback to the contacts on your screen. You can also follow us on our various digital media platforms. From me, Ucheo Koronkwo, and the rest of the team, thanks for watching.